guess the question for the day is it possible to be overblessed at Spirit Cars? We have got so much work and a bunch of turnkeys, and none of them are just like the average car. It's 30 years ago, I would have just been ecstatic to work on any one of them to get a car of whatever quality. This one is, if I believe right, it's called Incognito, but it's a blown small block Chevy with a drilled I-beam axle. You can't see it yet, it's still wrapped up, but finally got some more parts. I was missing a couple of brake parts, and actually I was really needing some time, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble. These are super stopper brakes. Get some QA1 shocks back up under the back of this thing, and move the suspension ahead. We wound up, this is supposed to have a chrome firewall, or a mirrored firewall, I mean, and did not put that on. If anybody comes in today, hopefully I can pull this body off and put that firewall on, get that done. But finally, I'm back up at Trinity, making a little progress on the Incognito, I think it is. If I've got it, correct me, Jim, if that's wrong, but I think it's Incognito. I'm going to start this project by assembling the QA1 shocks. Good quality shock, aluminum bodied shock. Looking at their instructions, the instructions basically go for all their different shocks, so following them is a little bit too difficult. Oh, not too difficult, that's not a good word, but it's not exactly what we're building with this shock. So this is what the kit looks like out of the box. You got your spring, your shock body, and you got your collars and all the adjusters. So you put, this is like a jam nut to go into this collar. So once you get it tight, make sure you put the washer up on this side, so when you're adjusting it with your spanner wrench and tightening up your spring here, that it's, you know, it's working on the washer. This is a collar that goes on the top. Once you get the spring on, it'll have to be kind of compressed a little bit. This bumper, it's like a rubber bumper stop. It comes all the way to the top of it. You'll have to pry that down a little bit to be able to get this collar on, and then just push it back up in there. Can't show you one-handed how to put the spring on, but I will put the spring on and we'll see that next. The QA1 shock gives you a choice of 2 collar sizes. So this one's a little bigger. This is too big for ours. This is what we use here. So you get those choices. I usually take these and put them on a vise. Pretty simple process. Just put it in the vise, get it lined up. Pretty simple. Just twist it in. Make sure it's going straight into the rubber. Otherwise you'll cut it a little bit, but that's all there is to it. So here's basically your before and after picture. You got your shock body and your spring. You got a jam nut here, the lower collar, a washer that goes on top of the lower collar, and then your top collar. And here's a couple sleeves to get into the shock body itself. And this is a shock once it's put together. A pretty simple process on this one. You might want to put some anti-seize underneath where this lower collar is going to go when you tighten up your shock. That way you don't have to worry about it galling the threads on the aluminum bodied shock, and you're all good to go. So you can see on a Spirit car, the way we make our brackets, they're not adjustable. We know where they go where they go, and this is not a universal car, this is a Spirit car. So you just take and put the shock right onto it, and just put a bolt on, or a nut on there. Once the rear end is pushed up upside here, you can see there's a bracket that'll go right into. So this is probably not a one-handed project, so let me get one of these shocks up there and I'll show you what it looks like. We have the shock installed, both shocks installed. I don't have the nut on this side, but be very methodical about tightening bolts on the suspension. So once I get the other one on, I'll make sure bolts are tight here before I do anything. And then just a reminder, before you actually put the car on the road, start in one place. Again, be very methodical and go through all the bolts, make sure everything's tight. So we're gonna get this tightened up. I'm gonna lower it down a little bit. I'm still gonna keep it up on jack stands, but I'm gonna get it closer to the ground. So next thing, we're gonna go ahead and start putting the super stopper brakes on. Next up is the super stopper brakes and the hubs for that, and everything comes from Super Bell. Really nice kit. Actually, the directions are pretty good. I really haven't looked at them, but we put a lot of them together, so not that big a deal. So a different brake bracket, it's just a real clean, real nice. I don't know what it costs, but it's a little bit more than the average. When we built this car, put it together, if you've been following our videos very much, you know we've kind of gone through some changes here. So for whatever reason, we put the wrong brakes on. So this is a regular brake kit. So we're going to take this off, and actually I've got another car I can put these spindles on with this brake kit. I'll grab a different set of brake or spindles, which would be 37 to 41. Well, it's all about priorities, and once in a while you just have to take a break. So in the middle of working on the brakes, got them all laid out for the super stoppers. I come to see my granddaughter play softball. She's in a tournament, and we need to stop them right now because it's tied up, bottom of the last inning. 2 outs, they got to run around first and third. So we're gonna have to wait and see what the outcome is. So we're back at it. In order to put the brakes on, first we have to put the brakes on. So it uses this, I'm gonna call it a bracket, but it's a brake bracket backing plate, and there is a left and a right. You're gonna want your caliper to lean towards the back. So on this, you're gonna want the polished side to the inside. Make sure the holes are going to line up, and then that your caliper will lean towards the back side of it. So we'll go ahead and get this thing started. Before you tighten anything down, make sure all of the bolts are in and started, and quite a few threads in. It's really easy with that bolt going through your bracket, your spindle, and then into your steering arm for something to be misaligned, and you don't want to cross thread those. So this is the upper side. It's got a slingshot steering arm. This is gonna steer with a Vega box slingshot style. The other way you could do it would be cross steer, but this is not going to be cross steer. This is with slingshot. And then we've got lower steering arms with the I-beam axle here on the T-bucket. Something we don't normally do. We've converted the I-beam axle to be spring behind instead of spring over. We need longer steering arms. So these are longer than our normal steering arms. These are actually a steering arm that's made to have a piece in there for cross steer, but it's been ground out and not drilled. On your right side, since you don't have a steering arm or anything on the top, you're going to be putting the bolt in with a nut. This is all chrome, so it's got a nice chrome locking nut. So we've got the lower steering arm, we've got a slingshot arm, lower steering arm, the brake brackets, and I'll call it dust shield all in one is all assembled. Now you're not going to be able to get at this again. This is our final assembly. I'm going to grease the bearings and put all that on, so make sure your bolts are tight here, because you're not going to be able to do a final check after it's all put together. A lot of the other bolts you can do a final check, but these you can't, so make sure they're tight. On the super stopper kit here from Super Bell, the rotors actually bolt onto the hubs. So it's got a countersunk hole, get them put together. It's got a bolt for that, comes with the kit. So we'll go ahead and get them assembled. Get it bolted down, get it good and tight. Make sure it's good and tight. Again, this is another thing you're not going to be able to go back and double check. Just a little bit of advice. The rotor here, when it goes down over this collar, it's a real tight fit. And you can see I've got the holes are not lined up. Get these holes as lined up as you can get them. And then tap it down with a hammer. It's going to be a whole lot easier than trying to draw it down with the bolts. And when I put this one together, it's machined really nice. Everything fits, but one of the holes is just slightly off. and I went ahead and tried to put the bolt in it, and it cross-threaded just a little bit. I immediately stopped, took it out, and I ran a tap. I went ahead and ran a tap down in there, and it went right in after that. So don't get in a hurry. Make sure it's all lined up, and that's just a tip. It might help you out a lot. Tap that down before you actually try to draw it down with the bolts. So we've got both the rotors on. Just an FYI, I had to do it on 2 of these, run the tap down there. Just better safe than sorry. It took just a few seconds to do it. So those are on. I'm getting ready to grease the bearings, make sure my bearings fit onto the spindles. But these bearings are made to go on the spindles and fit right in here. So I don't need a bearing adapter, so that'll be good. Went ahead and greased the bearings, got both bearings. Normally that's supposed to be the job for the new guy, but it looks like today I'm not just the new guy, I'm the only guy here. So we got the bearings greased. Now I'm getting ready to put the seals in. So put a couple seals in, and we're about ready to install the rotor hub, I guess I'll call this assembly. Just a few love taps. The seals are on. They're ready to put on the spindle. I got it pushed on. I realized once I went to put it on that the kit does not come with a spindle nut. So fortunately we have a parts department. I was just able to walk a few feet and go pick one up. So that might be something you want to be aware of, and make sure you have one on hand. I think generally when Josh sells a kit, he knows about that. If it's a complete kit, he'll put the parts with it. So the calipers are pretty straightforward. They are dual piston. Kind of interesting the way you put the brakes in. It just goes in through the top. You put them both in. And then it has a keeper to hold them in place. Installing them is very straightforward too. It's just 2 bolts. It's got a couple chrome bolts, one here and here. Just bolt them on. Everything lines up real good there. So coming to the end of the project, we'll have to put the drag link on there. I still need to assemble this side, but it'll go straight forward just like the left-hand side did. If I have any advice on the whole project is don't get frustrated, don't get in a hurry, don't really focus on the big picture, just look at the job at hand. If I would come in here in the morning and look at 50 jobs, 50 different cars to do, and just, it would be overwhelming. But when I come in this morning, I looked at, okay, I need to put some shocks on the rear end, and now we have shocks on the rear end. I need to assemble my front brake kits. Had a couple issues, very minor, running the tap in the hole, just to be, make sure of things, don't get in a rush. The spindle nuts could be an issue if it would have been Sunday and I would have had to run to the parts store and they didn't have them or something, but being prepared. But there's always tomorrow. Not that we're going to put anything off till tomorrow, but don't rush it, because it's going to cause you more problems if you got to go backwards to go forwards again. So there it is. Jim's car is moving ahead. I'm looking forward to tomorrow now.